Thank you very much for coming, and sorry for running a little bit late. Um, I haven't had the opportunity of speaking with members of the media for a little while. There are one or two matters that I want to raise with you. Um, and the first one is a matter which you are familiar with, those of you who covered the campaign in St. Joseph. We've had three elections, well, not three, four. We've had four elections this year in this country. And the issue I want to raise this morning is how the incumbent government set about to use state resources in the conduct of these elections, hoping to favor its candidates. I want to start with the Tobago House of Assembly election. That was the first one we had in January. And you would have heard us complaining or drawing to the population's attention that the government, through mainly ministries and state enterprises, had set about to influence the electorate in Tobago by giving out gifts and favors. The most blatant one was the Ministry of Social Development, the Food Card Ministry, which came to Tobago with a boatload of goodies, including food cards, and they basically carried on a fair of giving away food cards and giving away grants of all kinds and so on. And these we regarded as an abuse of the authority of the incumbent, blatantly trying to influence voters. And in fact, there were hampers being given out, there were food cards being given out, and more importantly, food cards were given to supporters of the UNC who came from Trinidad to campaign in Tobago. And these food cards were provided to these political supporters for their sustenance while in Tobago. And they were openly using these food cards in supply houses, supermarkets, and other places in Tobago. We complained about that. And we asked the government in the parliament how much money was involved in these giveaways, large issue food cards, and other things. The government did not speak the truth, and they sought to poo-poo the whole situation. But that was damage to the taxpayers' resources. It was only when the by-election came up in St. Joseph, in Chaguanas West, that Mr. Jack Warner, who was leading the campaign in Tobago in a yellow car, he is the one who, now speaking as a member of a new political party, was confirming what we had identified, what we had observed, what we had reported with respect to the abuse by the Ministry of Social Development. In fact, he was saying that he had a box of food cards, which he obtained. I don't know how he got them or what, but he was saying he was able to confirm that the Ministry of Social Development abused, mention the people, or whatever, yeah, abused that provision as part of the election process in Tobago, and Mr. Warner should know because he was integrally involved in the details of the management of the government's campaign. So that was Tobago. Then came the by-election in Chaguanas. The Prime Minister led a charge on the platform in support of her candidate Khadija Amin of throwing out a series of projects in Chaguanas West, which formed no part of any ongoing wider program. These were projects specifically identified and undertaken for the by-elections in Chaguanas West. They were largely done by WASA, and there were other offerings of a whole series of things. And there were overnight digging up, and there were overnight award of contracts, and a series of contracts were awarded, supervised by the Minister of WASA, and the cabinet was down there handing out projects left, right, and center under procurement procedures which were quite unacceptable. And as we stand now, we still have no idea what the expenditure totals were, and the procurement procedures remain quite questionable. So here again, the government was trying to use public monies and public decision making in support of a candidate. Then what was worse? Up comes the by-election in St. Joseph. And in this case, the candidate, because each time it gets worse, by the time we got to St. Joseph, it was no longer the minister or the ministry. It was now the candidate of the party, the UNC, who was out there selling himself as a performer, being able to deliver government services. And a series of projects were entered into, namely 25 according to the government, in a 10-day period, and that became the campaign's publication. It was the advertisement, the candidate, 25 projects in 10 days. These are all projects funded by the government through the government agencies, facilitated by ministers, directed by the candidate's campaign, driven by the Prime Minister and other senior ministers of government. These are matters of abuse. They run counter to the letter and spirit of the Integrity in Public Life Act. And during the campaign, we identified them and we pointed to the government's behavior, not one of which the most obscene was the Ministry of Agriculture, suddenly discovering that it had to pay farmers for flooding. We have no transparency, no accountability about how the assessment was done of this flood, who was to get what damages took place, who lost what. All we knew is that the weekend leading up into the election, the Ministry of Agriculture was busy working overtime, burning the midnight oil, preparing almost $3 million in cash, cheques, handing money to people in the Aranguez bamboo area, and had a table out with officers handing out these checks election weekend. It was Friday, and there were literally a table where people came up in a line and they were handed checks for dubious claims for flood. This was done specifically and directly as part of the election campaign. So the candidate was the performer, delivering government goods and services, contracts being awarded, facilitated by the cabinet, directed by the Prime Minister, paid for by taxpayers, and when that wasn't enough, in specific areas, monies were handed out under the guise of paying flood compensation. We have compiled these complaints. We've pointed out this. We've had our lawyers look at the situation, and we have since last Friday submitted an official complaint to the Integrity Commission. This morning I will give you, members of the media, a copy of what we have sent to the Integrity Commission. It will not be unfamiliar to you, but it has been put as a complaint, and we will await the investigation of the Integrity Commission into this matter, because we believe that this is a serious matter. It has been getting from bad to worse. Tobago was bad, Chaguanas West was worse, and by the time we got to St. Joseph, it was blatantly the worst. And as we go toward the general election, if the government is not called to order for these breaches, we expect that the government will do this for all 41 constituencies. What we saw in St. Joseph, if that is allowed to be accepted as normal administration of the country's affairs, then the government will be given a license to do this for all 41 constituencies. And this is in violation of the Integrity in Public Life Act and other laws. So we have sent this to the Integrity Commission, and we now will await a response from the Commission, whose duty it is to oversee the behavior of public officials and to protect public resources from actions of public officials and other individuals. While I'm on that, I want to clarify something which is before the country now. And let me point out that during the election, the General Secretary of the political party, the People's National Movement, did in fact write to the Integrity Commission on this matter I just mentioned. Friday's letter would have gone to the Integrity Commission, a similar letter, now that the election is over, has gone to the Integrity Commission on my hand in my capacity as leader of the opposition. So there are two complaints before the Integrity Commission. One from the political party, the PNM, made by the General Secretary, and Friday's complaint of a similar nature was made by me in my capacity as leader of the opposition, complaining about the government's abuse of its authority and the use of public funds for campaigning. And the point out, before I go further too, there's a case in England where a Minister of Housing had a similar question to answer about the distribution of council houses for facilitating political benefit. And the press may want to find out what was the position with that. A minister at the Parliament at Westminster was found guilty and was held responsible for serious financial liabilities for having distributed council houses in a way that it was deemed to have been for political purposes to favor a political party. So this is not a matter which we are creating here some issue about. The government has questions to answer and the Integrity Commission has a job to do.